Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you're enjoying one of these beautiful fall days here. It seems like we have taken a turn for colder weather, and with that is going to bring a change of seasons for John and his business, and we're really looking forward to hearing from John and what he has to share with us. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Stacy Nimmo, and I'm the Executive Director here at Red Wing Ignite. We are very happy to host this series of Red Talks. And RED, R-E-D, stands for Reinvention, Entrepreneurialism, and Determination. We're featuring the stories of business owners who have roots in Red Wing. And it has been an incredible series, hearing the amount of determination and the resiliency of the startups and the businesses in the Red Wing area has just been incredible to hear over the last few months. We are very excited about our upcoming Red Talks as well, so please stay tuned for more information on those. But for today, we are very pleased to welcome John Wooden from River Valley Power and Sport. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to Shannan Harris so she can do an introduction to John.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being part of us with this September edition of Red Talks. Just a tiny little bit of history about the Red Talks. We started this in conjunction with the Big Turn Music Fest in February, where we had a couple of art and music-based panels from the region, and we felt that it was a really exciting way to highlight the work, the entrepreneurial spirit that lives here in Red Wing and in the surrounding communities. And so we took a couple months off and kind of thought about what we wanted to do. And so it started in May, and we've had a monthly speaker each time. And we also save these on our YouTube channel. So feel free to go back and see some of the other speakers. We're really, really excited today to have, I think, one of the strongest entrepreneurs in our region today tell his story. And so welcome, John. We can't wait to hear about the path you've taken. It has twists and turns like every entrepreneur. And we're just so proud of the work that you've done and so excited for you to be part of this series. So welcome.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're up. Let's hear it. Where did you start? With a lawnmower.
We started with a lawnmower. So I'm born and raised in Red Wing, and had the opportunities as a lot of childhood people do in a neighborhood, where we started mowing lawns neighbor to neighbor, house to house, and so I had a little lawn service, and that took me through high school. Had employees in high school. Really turned it into a viable business for sole purpose really the sole purpose of putting myself through college is what I thought. So entered into, the story goes, found a path down to Winona State University, thought I would end up being an engineer. They had a composite engineering program at the time, first in the nation, and found out in a short hurry that I wasn't going to be an engineer, and decided to pursue their business program. So that led to, keeping our business, our small business, our property maintenance company at the time, going back home. So 1996, we really rented our first commercial structure in Red Wing, and we opened up and fully incorporated our property maintenance company. We actually had the opportunity through an acquisition from Tesdall Motors at the time. They were a second and third generation owned John Deere Ford dealership, and they sold their John Deere lawn and garden franchise to us. So the vision at the time was we were going to become Red Wing's lawn and garden center with a retail focus, if you would. So started out small with that acquisition. Started out down on Tile Drive, which we would, Red Wingites would call Clay City, and spent a year down in Clay City, and then moved from there, ironically, down to Levy Road, and we opened a building up, much bigger building down by Bay Point Park, and we were down there for the season. The first year we moved there was one of the most historical floods, 1997. So we had water on all four sides for about a month. So we thought we were a little doomed, but persevered through that. And from there, we found our location out on Highway 61. We knew that we needed to put a shingle up for good and try to own and control our destiny. So we purchased a piece of property. We are proudly a product of the Red Wing Port Authority. And so we worked with the Port Authority at the time. They were our gap financer, and we put together a deal. And from there, from 97 through year 2000, we operated a John Deere Lawn and Garden franchise. We did some nursery product back then, and we ran a property maintenance company. Took on, throughout that period of time, we needed to round out our winters, and we took on Yamaha Power Sports, so from snowmobiles all the way to their boat line. And apparently that was a good decision now 26 years later. So year 2000, we had the opportunity to move to a much bigger city in Rochester. So we did an acquisition of a John Deere dealership again, a Polaris dealership. And so we put a shingle up in Rochester in late 2000. So we're going to celebrate our 21st year now down in Rochester, and have a pure power sports facility here and a pure marine store. From there, it was ups and downs, made it through the great economic recession of 08-09, and came out of it with a whole bunch of opportunities. And so with that, we found a place in the metro that we wanted to call home and get in the boat business a little deeper. So now we've been in Lake Minnetonka in both the boat business and the marina business for the last 9 years. So we've been up there since 2012. So anyway, it all kind of all brings together today we're 3 marine locations. We're 2 power sports stores. We own 2 on-water marinas, one in Red Wing and one in Lake Minnetonka. We have 6 service centers. We own a property maintenance company still and a self-storage company. So all in all, I guess you would classify that as a classic entrepreneur collaboration. We've got approximately 110 plus team members, and that's who River Valley Companies are today.
That's a great summary of everything that you have done, and what an amazing way to start very small with a single lawnmower. And so right. If you were to stand in front of a group of young people, maybe high schoolers who had the ambition of owning their own business, getting started, what would be some pieces of advice that you would offer to them?
I think I am a product of anybody, the sky's the limit, right? And you have to be willing to work hard. You have to have some luck along the way. You have to meet some people that give you some opportunities, but truly, I came from, an average household in Red Wing. My mom's a school teacher, still is today. My dad worked at a rehabilitation center. So there really wasn't entrepreneurship, if you would, in the family, but obviously they encouraged me. But, to look back on that and say that, anything is possible. So would we, looking back and if I had the opportunity, and I have, had the opportunity to speak to some high schoolers over the years that, again, work, you need to be willing to work. And, no joke that I've probably had to and been willing to work twice as hard as anybody else. So if a 40-hour work week is average, my whole life we've worked 80 plus, right? And if you're willing to work and you're willing to take some risk and you're willing to, hopefully have a little luck along the way, meet some people that give you some opportunities, the sky's the limit.
Those are some great tips. One of our questions in the chat has to do with acquisition, and that acquisition seems to be a key part of business development. And if you would talk just a little bit about challenges and successes related to business acquisition.
Yeah. So, and we have, looking back, it was interesting as I was preparing for this today, we've acquired a number of companies over the 26 years. And I think if it's always easier to look back and reflect and say, I would have done this, this, and this, but acquisition is really important. And, obviously it has to be properly timed. You need to, you have to be properly capitalized. You have to have the opportunity to, gain the right kind of capital, gain the right kind of insight, if you would. So, but if I could do it all over again, we would have made most of, and I say that with a grain of salt, we would have made most of the acquisitions that we did today. There's probably, in every entrepreneur, there's probably an acquisition or two that, oh, if we could redo that, we might not have done it necessarily that way or in that manner. But in looking back, acquisition, if it's timed right, and if it's positioned properly, that can be the difference in being a major player in a marketplace or a major player in with a certain manufacturer or whatever you're going to do. But acquisition was really key for us and gave us the scale that was necessary. Whether we're talking in power sports, we made somewhere north of 7 acquisitions in the 26 years. In marine, we built it from ground up, so there have been no acquisitions. Marinas, we've purchased a couple different marinas, so there's been 2 acquisitions there. So acquisitions are definitely part and have been a solid part of our strategy for the last 26 years.
Thanks for that insight, John. One of the questions we have has to do with the education and training. So what types of education and training you thought or you think are most foundational to the, in order to open a business and keep growing your businesses? And you obviously employ a wide range of employees who need a variety of skill sets. So how does education and training play a role in your success?
Yeah, so when it starts foundationally, I think it's really important, at the middle school, high school level to begin, the foundation, if you would, of entrepreneurship and a little bit of baselines of business and being exposed to that. From there, for me anyway, would I have been as successful had I not, gone through state of Minnesota's business, a business admin program? May or may not. I know an awful lot of people that I have followed and or met along my path that aren't educated but very successful. So today, our strategy is this: we try to employ. I say it very, very, very interestingly, is I try to employ much smarter people than I at certain things along the way and certain aspects of the business. And typically, if you surround yourself with, very smart people, typically success will follow. So that's really been the foundation of our company. And so, interestingly enough, though, is there opportunities in our company for someone that has not yet completed an education? And the answer is yes. We offer training opportunities. We are heavy promoter from within. I'll reference today, I've got a general manager that's with me, runs our Red Wings store. He just celebrated his 18th year with us. He did have some education outside of high school, but he started as a inventory control, I would call him kid, 18 years ago. And, he's in charge of a store that has a $40 million budget today. So, it's just the opportunities are typically endless, especially in a business that has the scale and the multiple outlets that we do today.
One of the questions I want to make sure we talk about a little today is, if you had to take a 5-year view into the future, what do you see for your business? What changes do you see? Like, what does that 5-year snapshot look like?
It's always changing, right? And you hope you're on the right path. And we talk about there's definitely been some ups and downs. We've been through some very difficult times. We've been through the Great Recession of 08, 09. There were other ups and downs over our years. Obviously, the most recent was COVID. And so as we look through the next 5 years, specifically to the industries we're participating in, the future is significantly brighter today and than it was probably even 6 months to a year ago. The future of the outdoor industries, whether it's power related or non-power related, any escape to the great outdoors seems to be a pretty logical opportunity. So as we look to the next 5 years, we're saying, hey, the future looks bright in our industries. So where do we go from here? We're a fairly complex, multi-location. We have 8 bricks and mortar locations, 110 plus people, and where do we see ourselves going? And we seem to have an appetite for some acquisitions. We have partners with us that would like to see us in different markets, if you would, and so I guess where we see our future is acquisition and scale is what is driving I think our 5-year forecast, and so we're trying to build on that at this point.
Yeah, great. You obviously touched on what a lot of people are thinking about as we're living it right now, and that's COVID. And you and I had a chance to talk briefly yesterday about COVID. It's had a range of impacts on businesses here in Red Wing, in the region, across the country, and the world. So if you would talk to us in a little bit more detail at whatever level you're comfortable sharing about your first thoughts about COVID and what it has meant to your business.
Yeah, I want to be very respectful as I talk about our successes post-COVID, or if we want to talk post, or I guess we're in the middle of COVID. But we're very fortunate, and we feel very fortunate. We feel very lucky to be where we're at in industries that have done, ironically, much better post-COVID. So it's interesting. If I look back, our family decided to go on Red Wing spring break first weekend of March. We took off to southern Florida, down to the Keys. We were going to spend a week down there, and you get a little bit more isolated as you get down there. There really wasn't. There was obviously some discussions about the COVID virus when we left, but the prevalence of it wasn't all that high at the Minneapolis airport. And quite frankly, as we landed in southern Florida, and I'll never forget, we kind of came out of the Keys of Florida cocoon that weekend, and that very first weekend, and there was lots and lots of people with masks on in the Fort Lauderdale airport. And as we landed in Minneapolis, the same, and things were becoming more serious as we were picking up real newspapers and catching news headlines and plugging in our phones to see what was really happening in the world. And so we got back, and it was a very interesting time with the size of our businesses to most of our manufacturers. We're very fortunate to be a pretty large player with most of our manufacturers, and so it was, at the time, our manufacturers were reaching out to us. I would call it, they were sizing up their problems, if you would. So manufacturers were calling. We were having, multiple conference calls as to look at what's the size and the scale of the potential problems. Our multiple lenders that we work with, their floor plan lenders, operational bank lenders were calling, and basically we were having discussions with them as to what was our exact position, moving into what potentially could become, somewhat of a crisis. And so I would say things move so fast. I compare it back to 08, 09, and we lived through that. That was just a 18-month, 24-month period of time in my life that I never want to relive. It was kind of slow and painful. but it wasn't moving along fast. So with COVID and back in March, things were moving very, very fast. And, every day was getting to be a bit darker. So I recall, by the third week of March, our industry knew we had a problem. We began daily conference calls and webinars with industry experts. I'll always reference a 20 group, or it's a business group. We've been part of that. I co-chair that group for our industry. It's an industry peer group. And, we were doing almost daily webinars there as we were all trying to prepare this landscape. So began to apply for every bit of financial assistance possible. So the PPP programs that I'm sure everybody is aware of, those were front and center to us. There were some other financial assistance opportunities that we began to apply for and sizing up. And so anyway, we got our house in order, and I think it was really, really a good exercise. And I think had we not lived through 08, 09, we probably wouldn't have been as prepared. So basically, we prepared ourselves financially to say how much, how long of period of stay time will we have if we have no revenue, 25% less revenue, 50% loss of revenue, and all of those things. We went through scenarios. We have a team of accountants that work with us both internally and externally, and we were having daily meetings to say, okay, what's scenario A, B, and C look like from staffing levels, and you name it. It was again a lot of sleepless nights in the month of March.
Yes.
Really knowing what was going to happen, and I don't think we were any different. Being small, medium, or large, we considered ourselves small, but in the scale of our industry, we're actually fairly large, and our problems were, I'm pretty transparent with it. We had $36 million of the inventory on the ground in March, and we had no idea what was going to happen next. So fast forward, April came. We were very fortunate to be named essential in the state of Minnesota. So Maritime Vessel Repair Act meant that our marine stores could remain open and open to the public. We had to close our showrooms and keep them by appointment. We had to have staff meetings to try to keep our staff and customers safe, and follow all CDC and state mandates, and we lived through that. But business began to take off, and that was the very that's the positive piece of this. So lost about half of our revenue in March. And then began to grow revenues to unprecedented levels by the time we entered the month of May. So demand soared. People were thinking about how do we live with COVID? How do we still enjoy our families? How do we enjoy our friends? What are some things that we can do outside of traditional vacations and recreation and sporting events, and whether it's youth or professional or whatever, everybody's life changed as we knew it. And all of a sudden, whether we're talking marine or power sports, there was a quest by the public for how do I explore the great outdoors? And we were very, very fortunate. So our revenues and the opportunities that we saw in May, June, July were literally unprecedented. So, and I say that I want to be, like I say, I want to be respectful of those that weren't as fortunate. And, but it truly was a good space to be in. And it took some navigating to do it safely and respectfully, and because there's a wide variety of people, how they feel about COVID, and how they expect to be treated, how transactions went from very much so bricks and mortar face to face to transactions that happened virtually, and we would call them touchless. And so, we were delivering product to people's doorsteps, and they would never step foot in our bricks and mortar stores. And
pretty amazing.
It was just a really unique period of time, and we're still in that period of time, quite frankly. But,
yes.
Anyway, yes, our industry was very fortunate, both power sports and marine, to be on the upside, if you would, of COVID. But it could have certainly have gone the wrong way.
Yes. Thanks for your thoughtful response and the respect that you're showing to the wide range of experiences from your peers who are, managing business during this unprecedented time. Stacy, I think you have a follow-up question.
I do. And John, thank you so much for sharing the unexpecteds that you encountered during COVID. And I do want to, before I move on, I do want to acknowledge that we're also on Facebook Live now. And so any of you who are joining us on Facebook, if you have questions, if you'd like to chat them in, we would be glad to ask those questions as the time is available. But John, one question that I have is, you mentioned that one of the things that benefited you most is the experiences that you went through in the recession of 08 and 09. And I'm wondering could you share some of what it was that you learned during that time that you found particularly valuable during this time of COVID, and particularly if they might be key strategies or learnings that might help encourage or impact someone who is joining us here now?
Yeah, I think I'm glad to talk through 0809. So 0809, we were fortunate to skinny our way through 0809 with not a great loss of revenue. So that's the most interesting part. Back in 0809, the internet and what we would refer to as e-commerce was important, but not prevalent. So we had to redefine ourselves in 0809 as we were losing certain forms of revenue, but then we leveraged different relationships, if you would, with certain manufacturers, which had too much inventory. There was bankruptcies, there was repossessions, and so we got on lists to help liquidate. So I talk about all the fortunate times that we were able to keep our top line revenue, but I would say that, I look back and I'll never want to go through the bottom line profitability of 0809. But I think that one thing that was really important, and I would suggest this to any entrepreneur, big, small, or large, that, really relationships during crises are so important. And I reference this all the time, that there's not, if I look back in 26 years, the level of loyalty that's left in this world today is a lot less than it was 26 years ago. Some days we wonder if there's any loyalty left in the world, right? And so what I'm talking about is loyalty to some of your best partners. So I'm talking about Mr. Banker. So if I would, I've had the same primary operational banker for well over 20 years. And I will tell you that, having a solid relationship with Mr. Banker was so important. And you really, those are, in good times and in bad, right? Your bank is supposed to be there for you. And I would say this, that my banker was there for me. There is no question we were categorized as heavy risk industry back in 0809. We were operating in industries that were non-essential, and certainly, one would think that we were definitely categorized by this bank as potentially risky. And so it's really important to have that lender and to be known in the bank, as they need to know your story. They need to know your ethics. They need to know your ability to persevere, if you would. So I look back at that period of time, and that relationship I had with Mr. Banker, the relationship I had with Mr. Accountant, meaning outside accountant, not just internal accounting staff that we had at the time, but having a strong accountant, understanding. So you have your tools in your toolbox ready for good times and bad. I also look back at 0809, and I've referenced this company. We use Spader Business Management out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and they are industry experts in power sports. They're industry experts in marine. They operate in the RV space. They operate in agricultural equipment. And so several different categories of what we would call large ticket retail. So they're industry experts. They offer 20 group facilitation. And so they're financial consultants and best practice experts. So I look back, and Spader companies, basically forced what we would call bulletproofing exercises. And so bulletproofing exercises would be ones that say, all right, Mr. Entrepreneur, I know you're optimistic and you feel like you can sell your way through this problem, but what's your balance sheet look like? And how many months, how many weeks, or how many days can you meet your expenses, meet your payroll, and be able to persevere through, the next pandemic or the next, negative wave? And so that was absolutely imperative for our success and our ability to get through 0809. We had industry experts at our fingertips. They were dealers and entrepreneurs just like us that were dealing with the same levels of problems. They were dealing with different bankers. They were dealing with all of the outside attributes of the recession. And I look back on that and say, those exercises in 0809 made us stronger and made us better. And, as we entered COVID, we were much faster, much quicker to react. We had a much stronger game plan in March of this year as we entered COVID and entered the pandemic, era of panic, if you would, and said, okay, here's no panic necessary. Here's where our balance sheet's at. We need to decide our financial partners. We needed to come up with, plan A, B, and C on staffing levels, what's important for expense controls, all of these things. Had you not experienced the Great Recession, I think those of us that navigated our way through COVID and came out on top, I think that was really important as I reflect back on. So summarizing it all up, I call it bulletproofing your business, and you need to know how bulletproof you are. And because at some point in time, all businesses, I don't care how lucky you are, I don't care how well capitalized you are, and I don't care really how untouchable you think you are, all businesses will have cycles. And, we've talked about it every day lately that we're just 1 week away from the next economic downturn, and it just seems like, it just keeps chugging along, right? And so I think
that's great, John. It goes back to what you were saying really about you want to surround your people with, you want to surround yourself with people that bring skills and assets and talents they may not have. And I think sometimes it's quite hard for people to understand. They want to know everything about their business, and obviously people's businesses are so personal, but your example of reaching out and having your peer group and using a consultant that specializes in your industry, what a difference it made, and what a difference going through a really difficult time, 08 and 09, what a difference that made in your preparedness for the COVID that we never even imagined.
Shannan, I think that we have just a little bit of an audio issue, and I'm not sure if your comments just now were understood. Would you mind, maybe you could repeat that, and you might want to temporarily disable your camera. But John, as Shannan does that, I want to thank you for that. And it Red Talks, a lot of what we do ask about and we discuss is the resiliency that it requires to be successful in whatever endeavor it is that we are setting out to do personally or professionally, and resiliency. And you really made a key point, and that is building those relationships. And I'm reminded of a book that was popular a number of years back, a business book that I believe the title was something like Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, and realizing the need for us to work together, to be supportive, to recognize those key relationships that we have, where we can give when we need to give, and then we'll have the opportunity to drink from that same well when the time comes around that we're the ones that are thirsty. And so I think that is a great example of that concept. Shannan, can you try again what it was that you were asking?
Yeah, is that better?
No, it is not, unfortunately. So we're having having some audio issues. I will go ahead with another question here, and then we'll see if we can figure that out on Shannan's end. One question just regarding recreational vehicles and the business that what we're seeing today, and this is a question from someone in the audience, is motorcycles, for example, appear to be in serious decline. And how do you manage your shifting inventory and your employee skills to anticipate change? You mentioned that we are 1 week away from who knows what is the next big thing. But how are you preparing now for whatever might come next?
Yeah, no, good point. We've been in the motorcycle business for all of the 26 years. And so I would say that, the motorcycle business, it today, post-COVID or in the middle of COVID, the motorcycle business has had an increase. It's seen an increase, not necessarily at the level of the rest of the power sports offerings, if you would, side-by-side vehicles, personal watercraft. We're on the cusp of the snowmobile season, but that's a good point that the business is always changing. And so we have always, obviously, as I listed off all of the things that we are, what River Valley companies are today, is we're very diverse. And I think it's really important to remain diverse. So if I look at just specifically recreational vehicles and say, what has changed in 26 years? The diversity of the products that we offer today are significantly different than they were back then, if you would. And I think it's constantly evolving and changing. And what's hot today might not be hot tomorrow, but remain diverse and stay ahead of the curve. And again, employ industry experts in each bucket that you represent, and try to be in front of it, not behind it. And those that aren't in front of it find themselves to be in a little bit different scenario and need to be more reactionary. So, but good point on the motorcycle business, that it is definitely, it's had a very serious decline. And we're all, we were trying to figure out not just motorcycles, but just in general, power sports, boating. We seem to have, there's lots and lots of discussion on the new buyer. We talk, whether it's the millennial or if we want to go even one generation younger than the millennial, is these new groups of people, which is our future consumers. They seem to not be as interested in owning anything. Well, so we were studying that, and we have a team of 3 full-time marketing people work for our company. And so, we a lot of what we do is we spend an awful lot of time every week, not in really every day, but our management team gets together with our marketing team, and we try to figure out what's hot, what's not, what's going to be, what we need to really focus our attention on. And so there's been an awful lot of discussion, both internally and industry, has been this new buyer. And so we were losing the first-time buyer in a lot of our categories, whether that's motorcycle, boating, side-by-side, ATVing, snowmobiling. And what we thought was happening was that the ticket size and the cost of ownership was increasing to a level that, we might have hit a point of cost of ownership that it was exceeding maybe the average consumer. And what was interesting is, I think what's happened is, what we think is, there's just so much more to do today than there was 5 and 10 and 20 years ago. There's all kinds of different ways for the consumer to spend their time, spend their recreational dollars, their disposable incomes, discretionary incomes, I'm sorry. And so what was interesting about COVID was COVID has actually reinvented the first-time buyer. So we're very pleasantly surprised that all age brackets, I'm talking consumers in their 60s and 70s, i.e. grandparents buying boats and power sports products so that their family comes to the family cabin, cottages, things that they can do together, all the way down to the millennial that's potentially making their first purchase. So I think it's, in our world, it's watching the evolution of the consumer and trying to stay on top of that so that we understand, what the buyer is looking for tomorrow.
I'm going to try this again. Can you hear me clearly? Anyone?
No, Shannan, it is still somewhat garbled. Okay, so sorry everyone for that audio issue. John, thanks for sharing that. And I know that we had a question. Let me check here. A question just regarding the transition and change, and you may have answered this. I don't know if you would like to add anything else here, but that is, how do you stay connected with the customers to keep up on changes, to know what the demand is? And is there anything else that you would like to say regarding that?
Yeah, no, it's a buzzword in the industry today. Obviously, as we've been growing our company, we always try to stay very well connected to our customer. We know that, the future of our business is repeat and referral and trade cycles and all of that. But the buzzword today that a lot of people are talking about is these new consumers and these new buyers, these new people, whether, we're talking about power sports and marine today, because that's my industry, but we could go outside of it and say anything outdoors related. We could talk about pedal bikes. We could talk about canoes and kayaks. We could talk about anything that has anything to do with the great outdoors has had an upward spike in demand, if you would. And so in our world, though, of big ticket or larger ticket retail in power sports and marine, it's very important to make sure that the ownership experiences are positive, so that, hey, great idea, the family bought a boat and we've enjoyed it this summer, but now what? Now what do we do? How do we maintain it? How do we store it? How do we care for it? Are there some future generational operators in the family, i.e. are there some kids coming up, through the family that will have an opportunity to become a captain of that boat? And so do we offer some boating safety and educational seminars? Those are all things that, our dealership, our trade association is working on, our industry experts are working on to make sure that, the customer satisfaction is there, and that we can continue to, show the world that we talk about big ticket retail. It's really not that big ticket. It's really truly affordable, and it's payment oriented, and so with that, we can continue to breed new buyers and new consumers to power sports and marine. Another
question that we have here, John, just regarding the types of occupations that you employ there, and wondering, does your crew include diesel mechanics, engineers? What types of occupations? Are they boat specific skills and knowledge, or what does that look like?
You know, we have a wide range of people that work for us, and it's very interesting that we have seen lots of career changes that have joined our company, and they may have started on a path and found themselves, you know, in the profession of power sports and marine. So really, you know, we do have a director of human resources, and she, you know, works on our retainment and our recruitment and our hiring and all of those things. But, you know, we have, you know, highly educated folks in our accounting department, from, you know, a controller to inventory control level positions, you know, to, you know, other folks in our company that, you know, are truly very, very successful professional salespeople, for example, that may have had a background or an education in something other than sales, right? And they found a career path with us that you know, that is very good for them. You know, we're one of the shortages in our industries are our mechanics and our technicians. You know, I saw a post on a social media page yesterday, and one of my allies in the boat business had his technician next to him, and they're in a probably a fairly expensive boat with twin engines on it, and their technician had a laptop next to him, and they were doing diagnostic work on this boat. So, and his headline was, "My, have things changed as it relates to how we view a technician in the marine world today." So our technicians need to be electronics experts, if you would. You know, they're not just a gentleman with a wrench and a bunch of grease all over his hands. These people are become, you know, literally electronic network experts, and you know, a fair amount of training. Some we've currently have a couple technicians in training right now, and so we have them in a sort of an apprentice program that we're trying to grow them. So anyway, wider range of opportunities in our company, and again, you know, we have technicians in our company today that, you know, they have an average wage of now north of $40 an hour. So these are very good livable wages in some of our service and parts departments.
So John, and again, for those who are watching in, because I know you can't see who these other voices are, but this is Stacy with Red Wing Ignite. Just one other follow-up to that question regarding the types of occupations. I'm wondering, for someone who's looking at a potential job change, or for maybe a student who is really interested in the recreational vehicle market, or working in the industry that you're in, and looking at becoming maybe a mechanic or technician, what one or two pieces of advice would you give to them?
You know, again, interesting background for me is, obviously I had a property maintenance company, or I had a lawn care company back in high school. So I thought I was fairly industrial, if you would. I also worked for a dairy farmer throughout high school. So I always had a background in mechanical things and things like this. So in addition to some business classes back in high school, I pursued a fair amount of industrial arts. So ironically, I was named an industrial arts student of the year back in 1991 out of Red Wing High School. And today, I think anytime I tell that to one of my mechanics that does all of my work for me today, that they said, "Geez, even you that doesn't appear to get your hands dirty at one time had a background in this." So, you know, again, I think it's really, really important for middle schools and high schools to, you know, show career paths to kids that don't necessarily always have to equal a 2 or 4 year college. And there are very, very good livable wage positions in you know, again, as a mechanic in power sports, a mechanic in marine, in part support. There's a variety of career paths that you know, again, are very you know, high livable wage positions that, you know, you don't necessarily need that 4-year degree. I was talking to a nephew of mine this weekend. We were out actually waterfall hunting, and, you know, perfect time to talk to him, young man. And, you know, he's asking, he was bouncing off his uncle, what do you think about me becoming an electrician and not going to college? And I said, you know, the world needs more electricians. We just went through the bidding process to build a new facility in Rochester, and we had a hard time finding an electrician in 2019. So, you know, I think that we get so caught up in, you know, my son, my daughter needs to pursue a 4-year education and there's no other path. There's a lot of paths for kids that are looking at careers outside of traditional 4-year colleges.
So just a comment that I would like to make on that, John, and I have to tell you, so a comment that was chatted in was from Burke Murphy, who happens to be our workforce development lead here at Red Wing Ignite. And she said, thank you, that it's music to my ears. And one of the programs that Burke champions here is our Learn and Earn program, which helps to place, we work in conjunction with Red Wing schools, with the college. There's an OSHA 10 certification that the students go through. And then we have a number of area partners where the students can be, and it's primarily in some type of manufacturing, but they can get that real hands-on internship skills. And we have seen students in our last grant cycle placed into positions permanently with some of these companies. And so what you're saying is so true. And there are so many paths, whether it is in blue collar work, whether it's entrepreneurialism, whether it's in white collar, but the path isn't necessarily straight. And especially during this time of COVID, there's so many paths, and people who are looking at or for the opportunities for who are looking for windows for additional opportunities. So there's just a couple of things that I would like to wrap up with. We're almost here to the end of our time, but I'm wondering, John, if there are any last parting words of encouragement or things that you would like to share that you didn't have the opportunity to discuss.
No, you know, again, I appreciate Red Wing Ignite for the opportunity today, and it's always fun. Every entrepreneur loves to tell a story, right? So I enjoy telling the story, and my story is unique. I'm, like I said, I'm very thankful for choosing. I joke sometimes that I didn't get very far in life, that born and raised a Red Wing grad and chose to never leave. Obviously, I've left a little bit in that we've opened businesses up in other communities now. But, you know, I think that, you know, Red Wing's been good to me, and the state of Minnesota has been good to me. And it's always good to be able to give back and, you know, hopefully tell a story that hopefully offers someone a little bit of encouragement that, you know, the sky is the limit. Anything is possible. But you know, in today's world, you're going to need to earn it, and you're going to need to be able to work towards it. And, you know, again, I think I'd end like this, that I wouldn't be where I am today without my wife and my family that has surrounded me and been extremely supportive. You know, owning a company the size and scale of ours has its ups and its downs, and sometimes Dad's not always home as much as he probably would be, but he's pursuing, and hopefully everybody that's possibly tuning into Red Wing Ignite knows that some of us that are entrepreneurs, we like the game of business. So, and so it's playing the game on a daily basis. I don't feel like I go to work any day of the week. I go to work is not work. Work is something that I truly enjoy. It's my life. It's the game of that I've chosen to play. And I think I tell this a lot to the folks that are interviewing with our company. If you're truly, any day you wake up and you're pounding your head on the shower stall saying, why am I going to work today? You must be doing something wrong. So please discontinue what you're doing and find a path that makes sense. So, and that path we find hopefully every day. There's a team of 110 of us today in our company, and we're hopefully, hopefully going to continue on a positive path in the future. But appreciate the opportunity today to Red Wing Ignite, and wish everybody a solid 2020 and a better 2021.
John, thank you so much for your time with us today. And we just so appreciate what it is that you bring to our community. And we have so enjoyed hearing your story of determination and how you grew your business. And hopefully there will be some nuggets of encouragement that all of us can take away from this time. I'd like to just mention just very quickly, and I alluded to a couple of these things. One is our workforce development, our Learn and Earn program that is getting ready to kick off for the new school year. And it is open to area students. If you have questions about it, have a student that you think, a junior or senior in high school that you think might be interested, please reach out to us. One other huge opportunity that I would like to mention is a partnership that we have with Udacity and the Center on Rural Innovation. And it is a digital skilling foundational course that we are able to offer free because of our partnership to 267 residents of Goodhue County. And so if you know someone who has some interest in digital skilling, such as digital marketing, business analytics, this is a great opportunity to explore that and determine if it might be right for you. Please help us to get the word out. You can visit our Facebook page to get more information and also to get more information on the Learn and Earn program. And then lastly, our next two speakers for our Red Talks. In October, we will be welcoming Susan Langer, who is an area entrepreneur here from Red Wing, and she'll be talking about Live, Give, Save. It's a fintech application, social enterprise application that she is the founder of, and she has been seeing some incredible success in spite of COVID-19. And then in November, we'll welcome Carl Nobelsdorf. And so we're very excited about our upcoming talks. And John, thank you again. Thank you for being so gracious to give of your time and share your story with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you.